that crazy? Like we hear all these friends and stuff that say they have like a terrible boss and works them like a slave driver, and then we're like a sometimes worse boss to ourselves.
Let's fight failure together. We can defeat 90.
What's the greatest roadblock you're still facing right now in your life, as far as failure and like the idea of working through things of yourself?
Yeah, I'd say like so. Motivation as far as consistency goes, like I've seen graphics where it'll have like 12 circles, and one's full and half full, a little bit full over the top, and then they're all together, and it says like this is what consistency looks like. Because I think like people expect to be like on 100% like every day, and when they have 2 or 3 days that they're not on, and they feel like, oh, like I'm not consistent, I've lost it and stuff. And I used to say like I'm not consistent, but I think now, like we go through seasons and stuff. So I'm sure you have the same thing with like Defeat 90 and stuff. If you have days that you're on and stuff, and then days that you're not, I like try to lean into that wave and stuff. Like the other day, I didn't feel like doing new listings, and I had a note in my phone that was all of the shelf labels, and that was like a simple mindless task that I needed to get done. I went through and I did all of those. So like my biggest block has been just forcing myself through the off days, which doesn't make sense. It's like, let's basically understand that there's going to be highs and lows and ride the wave of what type of day it is.
Yeah. I think that's a really good hack in life, because I feel like it's something I'm working more diligently on. We were actually just talking about that a little bit ago. I think it's us being the seven part of us that like shiny object syndrome and like being inspired.
Like I have to call people every time I'm in the car.
Like it's just,
mainly
it's one of those things. But the thing is like I think this is more of a caveat of understanding your personality, understanding how you work. I always bring it back to Enneagram, because I feel like it's just a good starting point. It's not the end all be all, but it definitely brings some understanding to things.
Yeah.
And like some people can just power through. I am not that person. But when I'm motivated, dude, I will crush a bunch of tasks way faster and harder tasks than what the average person will, Yeah. And most of what I do is creative, and that's such a hard thing to just like summon, like be creative,
Well, and time and effort are basically like separate, you know what I mean? We think sometimes like if an 8-hour day is going to be the best, but if 6 hours with maximum effort is better than 8 hours at 50% effort, like you taught me that even when we were with the marketing agency, is like we had some mornings where we came in and everybody was off, and we'd all be like just trying to like power through, and you would literally stand up and be like, all right, we're all going to breakfast, and we would go to Scramblers for 45 minutes, and then we would come back and crush the day. And the 45 minutes was 1,000% worth it, because if we had all just done that through the whole day and didn't do what we needed to do, then it's like no way we would have gotten the same amount of stuff done.
And it's such a there's such a guilt mindset, right? Of like, I think it goes back to school, it goes back to some of these other sections we put ourselves in life of like, well, you do this during this time, and like I'm now how do I say this? I'm getting rid of the weekends. I'm reshuffling my week to be more of how it makes sense predictively wise of how I'm actually feeling. If I'm having a really good weekend, as far as like I'm in a flow state, I'm just going to work through, and I'll take like a Wednesday off. Or like I went to Branson, went to Silver City yesterday and spent a day in Branson. Like, but I had crushed it and worked really hard, throughout the entire week. And so I'm trying to actually make my time work for me versus me being a slave to my schedule. And I think that the only thing where that comes into play, some people, obviously you have people that have, you're people that you're working with that are subject to those schedules, and some of you have kids, and that makes it tough. And I'm in a really unique place right now where I can really have that freedom, but you can still be thoughtful of that. So, all right.
And then the other thing, which just goes into everything, but when I was saying like the only time you should really feel guilt is if you think that you left it on the table. You know, like in the end of the day, if you didn't give it your all, like when I have closings that I've had 2 closings in my career that did fall through, and I've had deals that went south and stuff with my other business and everything. So like I'm to the point now, I don't put any shame on myself if I did everything I could.
Yeah.
Because I used to beat myself up even if I did everything I could.
Yeah.
You know, like I would drive the courthouse, do all this different stuff, and then the closing fall through. And then I still feel the shame of like, oh man, there must have been something else that I missed or something like that. Yeah. And now like I could generally wash my hands of it and be like, if I did everything that I was able to do with the resources that were available to me and it still didn't work, then who else could have done it? It just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, and that's only if I truly believe that. Like, but that is my motivator. Is just like if it's gonna fall through, it's gonna be because I tried to see it through on every angle.
And at that point, even then, I'd say, like, I mean, I think that's a great place to put yourself in. That, you know, you've given your all. But sometimes I think we have to be careful too about the expectation of what all is.
Yeah, that's good too.
Because sometimes I think we can put ourselves in a trap and being like, man,
yeah, I mean, I had deals where I answered the phone at 11:30 at night.
Which is that healthy?
No, definitely not. So yeah.
And I say that. So I think I like that idea, but you need to combine it with boundaries, right? That's
absolutely, yeah.
And I think from a perspective of, I think that's one of the big things we all struggle with in entrepreneurship is boundaries.
Yeah.
And even in like what I just said, like,
isn't that crazy? Like we hear all these friends and stuff that say they have like a terrible boss and works them like a slave driver, and then we're like a sometimes worse boss to ourselves. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're writing your schedule for the week and you just look at it and just be like, would I like make a friend work this schedule? You know, as like a filter. Would I put somebody I love through this schedule?
But then that begs the question, how many weeks in a row that you're like, well, and this is how it always works, right? We're like, I have to get it done.
Yeah. Okay.
I have these things. This has to be done. And then I ask you, well, then why did you put yourself, like we've talked about the statement. For every yes you say, you're saying no to something else.
Let's fight failure together. We can defeat 90.